What's going on? Welcome to another episode of Feel the Burn podcast. Host Franklin Miller, joined by Jacob Harden, Chris Denson, and Rowan Donaghy. In today's episode, we're going to be discussing about the new Cardinals general manager Monti Ossenfort and potential head coach or partnered head coaching gigs with him. And for the Suns, we're going to discuss a little bit about the Cam Johnson return, which is huge, and the injuries, and also about the recent Sun struggles to go along with some trade rumors as the trade deadline is coming up here in a few weeks. So to kickstart, we're going to talk about the Cardinals general manager first, and I want to allude this to you first, Jacob. What are your key takeaways on the new hire of Monti Ossenfort? I think it's a terrific new, interesting direction for that the Cardinals chose to take. So I just want to get your thoughts on what your thoughts are on Monty.
Yeah, I was a big fan of him. Listening to his press conference, he seemed like he brought a little bit of hope. You could tell already, coming off of such a terrible season, fans are already starting. They're ready for next year. They're excited. I think he brought this kind of spirit of, look at where I was with the Patriots. I had this winning culture. He was a scout from the Patriots from 2000 2019. I mean, he was there forever. Won 5 Super Bowls with them. He knows what it's like to win. He knows what to look for, and talent-wise, from a scout perspective, which is going to be huge with this upcoming draft and just moves made this offseason. During the press conference, he seemed very optimistic about this isn't a rebuild for them. This is just a get back on track stage. He used I'll pull up one of his quotes. It was not too long ago. This team was in a very good position. Our goal here is to win, to build a team that could win the NFC West. This was kind of the same stuff Michael Bidwell was talking about the other week. They were right in there. They were in the playoffs last season. I think people often forget that this is a still talented team that was competing at the highest level a year ago today. Just because one season went off the rails doesn't mean everything's in complete shambles. So I think he brought, if not, I think fans are ready to go watch home games again. And I'm excited to see who he has for head coach too. I think he has some really good input. I think now that the general manager there, Michael Bidwell, will have someone he can sit at the table with and discuss who that next head coach will be.
Yeah, I mean, I agree 100%. I think it's an interesting direction that the Cardinals chose to go with the Patriot way in a sense, and I feel like him being in Tennessee for the last 3 years was key too, because I feel like he helped build a lot of good players and helped draft a lot of good players with Mike Vrabel back in Tennessee. So it'll be interesting to see who the next head coach would be. But before we get to that, Rowan or Chris, do you guys have any thoughts on the new Cardinals GM? Either one of you can go first.
Yeah, I was just gonna jump in. Jacob just said the culture. That's the biggest thing. I think he's bringing a winning culture from New England, and just mentioned Tennessee. Both of those franchises have been winning franchise. When he was there, while he was there, he came in pretty strong, talking about no egos will be welcome in the building. I love the mentality he's bringing, the cohesiveness, trying to build a winning culture more than bringing talented players in, because anybody could just do some trades or draft some players. But if everybody don't believe and have each other's back in the locker room, it's going to translate on the field to what we saw this past season more than what we saw 2 seasons ago.
Yeah, that's good, man. And like said earlier, four-time Super Bowl champion with the Patriots, so he knows exactly how good a culture can get. And if there's anything the Cardinals need, it's stability. And I
Yeah.
believe that with a guy that's been there in New England, that is the standard when it comes to stability is key. Chris, did you have any thoughts on the new general manager?
Yeah, Rowan did report on, like he said, the ego comment he made, and I think that's a good start. I think he's a good start. Obviously, you're trying to work from that spot on down to the head coaching and so on, but and it's kind of like alluding to Rowan's article, like not trying to point it directly at him, but Kyler Murray may be in a situation where he's not the most egotistical person, but maybe it's something where your ego is more play driven than attitude driven. he may want to look into, a coaching staff that's going to cater a different way that he feels like would be most effective on the field. So maybe that's, Kyler changing up a little bit of how he plays, and that could be something. But I think it is a great start that they did get somebody in there that wanted to set the tone right out the gate. Like, hey, check the egos at the door. Clearly, y'all, did the egos somewhat last year, and look where that got everybody. So let's try my way. And, I think it's a good start. I really do.
That's
Yeah.
what Kyler needs. I know some players are able to do it. They don't need that head coach for that motivation, or they don't need that extra little push. But Kyler's definitely one of those that he needs that. I wouldn't say he needs it, but he could definitely use someone there to kind of give him that little push. And Cliff Kingsbury didn't give that to him. Not blaming Cliff Kingsbury for not making sure Kyler studies, because that's not obviously his job. But I think starting from the GM down, letting Kyler know, hey, we're paying you a lot of money. We expect you to be the best. Like, there is no mediocre here. You're here, you're getting paid $250 million for a reason. You're supposed to be a top 5 quarterback in the league. And if you're not going to perform like a top 5 quarterback, then there's something that's going to be done about that. And I think for Kyler, he's been winning his entire career. He went like undefeated in high school. I'm pretty sure about that. College, won the Heisman, one of the best college quarterbacks. And he's never really had any struggle. And, with this ACL injury, I think it's a great opportunity for the Cardinals to really, have a career-defining moment right here for him. And next season, it will be that moment. Whether he bounces back, we're seeing a lot of these quarterbacks in the league right now. They're approaching their 3rd, 4th year, and it's like, are they a bust, or do they got something? You saw there with Daniel Jones this season. And I think, like I said, this is exactly what Kyler needs to really take a different step in his career, because right now he's not going to where he wants to go.
Yeah, I think it's 50% the ego, but I think the biggest thing he needs to improve on is just the accountability of it.
Yep.
Accountability of it. I think last season it was a lot of it's not my fault.
Yep.
Injuries, coach, whatever. I think he needs to just put some stuff on his shoulders, even if it's not his fault, and just show his teammates that he has their back so they can have his back. I feel like half of the Cardinals players don't rock with him like they should, being teammates. Like Jacob says, a franchise quarterback. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's setting the tone.
There was the report that came out. They didn't release the name of the player, but the veteran, that's what they called him, came out and said that they created a monster with that contract. And you give someone that much money at that young of an age on their 3rd, 4th year, he didn't respond how the team wanted him to respond. He responded like, okay, I got my money, cool. And you see that sometimes. They get that big contract and, all right, I got paid.
Can't be my fault. Somebody else around here messing up.
Yeah, I think self-awareness runs through that whole locker room. And I'm not, like you said, you're not trying to put all the blame at Kyler's feet, but it's like it kind of somewhat starts with you. And, and the other vets that were in there too, but like being self-aware on the field, off the field, they kind of go hand in hand this season. You just could tell it. So even when you watch Hard Knocks, you see people kind of seem like they were locked in, but at the same moment, it was just like, oh, it's another week. Let's try to do what we can. And then they lose. So I think they got to be more self-aware, like from top to bottom. Like you really got to lock in first game of the season. And just because you drop a few, don't, just withdraw yourself from the season, basically, like it felt like they did after a minute.
Yeah, it felt like there was missing veteran leadership on that locker room for the last couple of seasons, even just to kind of show Kyler how to be a professional, how to show a lot of these other young players how to be a professional. I feel like they all trying to figure it out on the fly. And I'm probably, y'all can correct me if I'm wrong, but this was Kingsbury's first head coaching job too, right? Like
in the NFL,
NFL level, yeah.
Yeah, NFL.
I think a lot of people, man, didn't know how to play their role properly. I don't think it's all on Kyler or on Kingsbury. I just think it felt like I don't know how to say the owner's name, but I feel like he's coming in with the right presence to do exactly that.
Michael Bidwell?
What's the dude that just got hired? Ossenfort?
Oh, Monti Ossenfort?
Ossenfort.
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 And the way he sounds, you may want to get used to saying that
I
wrong.
still have to look
I don't
over the
think
name
he's
every time. I'm like, man, this
Yeah,
guy.
please forgive me if I said the name wrong. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, no,
I
and
think,
even going back to what Jacob was saying about the whole comment of creative monster, it reminded me of something that Shannon Sharp said on Disputed in reference to
yep,
Antonio Brown,
Come
where
on,
it's like
Skip.
where it was like that big contracts or like money wise, it's like it doesn't really change a person and only magnifies them to a whole. And I'm not saying like Kyler's like a bad person or anything like that.
right, right.
Or I would never like be, discredit his character like that. But I did find it interesting to hear those comments come from him, or come from other teammates of his, especially in a season where where he waited for his contract extension and he was willing to, sit out and like cut all the social media stuff. And then you see the sideline banters and everything. And it's kind of just as interesting thoughts of like, okay, what I think Michael Bidwell wanted to do here, especially with the hiring of Monty, was more stability up front, if anything, to kind of create that culture change of like, hey, that's why it's key when he says Eagles will be left at the door, because in order to become a champion, like he knows how to be, you have to have leave that out the door and not make it all about yourself. And I feel like if anything, this is good for Kyler. Whether this pans out or not, I think this could potentially be a home run hire just based off the stability that he brings, Monty, and how the culture change it'll be. So I think if anything, this is going to kickstart something special for Arizona. But with that comes the head coaching hire, and there's a lot of names being thrown out there: Sean Payton's of the world, Brian Flores of the world, you name it. I mean, I can start off with you, Jacob, of course, since you're like the Cardinals guy. But who do you think is going to be, if you had to guess, or if you had a hunch, who do you think is going to be the next head coach to pair with Monty to be leading the way for the Arizona Cardinals this upcoming season?
I think right now I would go with either Brian Flores or Vance Joseph. I would love to see D'Amico Ryan, what he's done with the 49ers. I know they have an interview this weekend. Um, he's a defensive mastermind. I think he would be great to have. I like Brian Flores, and I say that because of he played with New England while Monty was there, and they've spoken highly of each other. So I think they already have that New England connection. Um, I think Sean Payton is slowly drifting away. Because of what came out today, I don't see the Cardinals giving up their number 3 overall pick. I think 25 million is what he wants to per year for the Cardinals. They need this number 3 pick. And I think there's so many coaches out there right now. And there are a lot of teams that need a coach. So I think the Cardinals have that number 3 pick and they have that talent. At least more talent than, let's say, the Texans or the Panthers. So it is a pretty attractive coaching destination, along with it being the Phoenix area. A lot of coaches want to coach here. So I think they could get either Brian Flores or D'Amico Ryan. I hope it's not Vance Joseph. I would like for them to go outside the organization, and just with Vance Joseph, what he did with the Broncos and wasn't really anything special. So yeah, right now those are my big two, and I would be okay with either one.
Yeah, what's key in what you were saying there is like a lot of it was defensive minded coaches, which is
It's a lot.
which is really great, so to speak. Because I feel like a lot of times, when people think head coaches, they're thinking of that next Sean McVay or
Yep.
Kyle Shanahan or offensive guru like
Yep. Like
Matt
Cliff.
LaFleur, all those guys. And I think it's key where you just need, honestly, that the culture changes first and foremost, but you just need a leader of men as
Yep.
opposed to just a play designer, because the Cardinals already tried that route with Cliff Kingsbury, so I can understand them going a different route. But Rowan, who do you think, if you had to guess, could potentially be the next head coach of the Cardinals?
In a short answer, my money's still on Sean Payton. I'm gonna ride the train till it crashes. However, I did see today, y'all speaking about defensive head coaches. They requested to interview Lions defensive coordinator Aaron Glenn,
I don't
who
like that.
I love the Lions the last 2 seasons, even the grit and the edge that they bring to the field on both sides. I feel like he kind of fits in with the same culture that Ossenfort's trying to in place and implement into the organization. And he seems like a non BS kind of guy, and I think he'd be a great leader of men, like you just said, Franklin. But if we're gonna go defensive minded, why not a defensive coordinator on a team that's got some edge to him?
No, I agree with that, and I think a lot of things that your guys are saying is really cool because, especially with Aaron Lynn, I think the reason why he's getting a lot of attention is maybe not so much that people are so like enamored with, oh, the Lions have such a great defense and like they did such a great job. I think it's more of like Aaron Lynn understands how Matt Campbell works, or Dan Campbell, excuse me, Dan Campbell works. Dan Campbell has done a great job at changing the culture in Detroit. Where they're not the same old Lions. I think if anything, they're going to be next up next year. So I understand from that standpoint why you would say Aaron Lynn is more so from a culture standpoint. I think that he can be somebody that could be enticing and interesting. What about you, Chris? Who do you think's going to be the Cardinals' next head coach? If you had to
Well,
guess
I
right
mean,
now.
I like Brian Flores for it. I do. I'm kind of leaning with Jacob on Sean Payton. Just kind of feels like a tagline at this point. Like he's the name is what's keeping him in the little bit of pools of believing that he's going to come, which he still could end up being the head coach. Not saying he's not, but it does feel like that trail has kind of like died off a little bit.
They haven't set up
So
an interview with him yet, too.
yeah,
I don't know if they completely gave up on it. They said they were going to, and they haven't yet. And I mean, the Texans did. So if the Texans could, I'm assuming they could. But I mean, I don't know if they gave up on it or if they're just kind of stalling and seeing how things go.
yeah. And I mean, it could be something where they schedule something last minute with him. He has his interview with the Texans. It doesn't go well. Stuff like that happens literally all the time. I don't really necessarily see it happening where I can actually see something like a Brian Flores getting moved on or somebody in his range of field of his scope. I could see it materializing a lot faster than this Sean Payton saga has kind of like almost dragged on at this point. And it's like I said, it's normally in the sports world when something drags on like that after a while, it's probably because it fell through behind the scenes weeks and weeks ago, and we're just now finding out that it, fell behind the scenes. So, yeah, I'm not entirely sold on him coming, but if he does, obviously still a great coach. I just think it's a little bit of smoke and mirrors on any traction still being there with Arizona versus them just moving on to the other candidates that are out there.
But I don't think it needs to be Sean Payton. I think at the beginning, everybody was looking Sean Payton or bust. I think that's kind of out of the picture now. And I think fans are happy. They're ready for a fresh start, a new beginning. They're looking for, I think, as long as it's not Vance Joseph. And I say Vance Joseph just because I've seen a lot of negative things about we're tired of looking internally. We need to go externally.
Yeah.
Vance Joseph, he's a great guy, but he was fired from the Broncos as their head coach after going 4-12. We need to hire someone. I look at Brian Flores. He did great with the Dolphins in 2021. Someone with experience that's proven themselves, not looking to prove themselves. And I think there's a list of, I would say, 5 names right now that fans would be excited about. And
they seem pretty agitated with when the pressers were coming out, and there was something of a feel of possibly promoting internally, and it was kind of like, oh, not that again. Like, I'm kind of over that. Let's get something fresh in here. Let's see what something new can do. So I'm right there with you on that for sure.
Yeah, shake some things up.
Yep.
I'm going to go a different direction when it comes to the Cardinals head coaching
Talk to him, Frank.
Situation, because we all been saying defensive gurus, or just leader of men in general. And I actually agree. I don't think Sean Payton's coming. If anything, I think a lot of teams are going to pass up on Sean Payton. $25 million is a lot, and a lot of people are going to want to keep their draft picks.
I think Broncos could.
Broncos could, because they got really nothing to lose.
They'll probably flip that.
Yeah, exactly. If anything, the Broncos make the most sense, or a team like Dallas if Mike McCarthy was to get fired. But at this point, I don't think Mike McCarthy's going anywhere. Um, so, or if miraculously the Chargers move on from Brandon Staley. But I think neither of those guys are going anywhere. So, if anything, that there could be a situation where Sean Payton doesn't go anywhere. They might have to wait another year because of the high demand of what he's asking for. But I'm going to go in a different direction in terms of I like to view it as, okay, who would fit well with Kyler, and I think that's the key
Nobody.
to this all. Nobody. That's the key to this whole thing, because he is how the Cardinals are viewing this as their guy, their franchise right now. And so I think it's very important that they get this right in regards to moving with Kyler. And I think there's one coach that I'm actually kept an eye on that, and then probably gonna botch the name, but Shane Steichen from Philadelphia,
Oh
the
yeah,
OC,
Eagles.
the
Yeah.
Eagles. I think he's done a terrific job, not only with Jalen Hurts' development, but what he did with Justin Herbert during his rookie year, because he used to be with the Chargers for a long period of time. And I thought he did a great job during his time with Philip Rivers, and his back end of his career being his quarterbacks coach. So he knows a good thing or two about how to work well with quarterbacks and understands their tendencies. And I think he has done a good job of providing such a well balanced offensive attack. Because I think that was one thing that was getting lost in shuffle with Cliff Kingsbury. And I could be wrong, and please correct me. I just didn't think there's a lot of balance in his offense. And I think a lot of the times that it kind of got stagnant a little bit at times. And I think, if anything, with the culture change that has happened in Philadelphia, and I think he has a lot to do with that, and his ability to call plays, and not just that, his ability to lead men and in the offense, and especially the quarterback position. I think that could be a potential, situation right there. But that's just my sense. But correct me if I'm wrong.
No,
But
I mean, they've been really good at keeping it a secret. They haven't. I
Yeah,
mean, through the press conferences that they've held, it's just our options are open. We're casting a large net, is what Bidwill likes to say. We're casting a net wide and large. He's used that phrase repeatedly. He hasn't given away any details. They've just kind of been announcing they're interviewing someone every other day. So it will be interesting, and I'm excited for whoever it will be. It should be soon. I would think next week is when they're going to get that announcement made. Probably do a couple more interviews this weekend, get
yeah,
that next
absolutely.
week, and then go from there, get the off season rolling. But the sooner they can get that, the better.
Yeah, man, absolutely. If anything is gonna, the decision should happen before Super Bowl. So we shall see. In very exciting times in Arizona, especially with new culture and era with this new GM. So let's see who the next head coach will be. But now we're gonna move on to the Phoenix Suns. And there's terrific news tonight ahead of the game against the Brooklyn Nets. Is Cameron Johnson, who has been out since November 4th with a right torn meniscus injury, is finally back. I think that is something that the Suns have needed
Huge.
desperately. Just something to turn around this season just a little bit. Now, with that being said, they still have 5 people out tonight, so it's not all sunshine and rainbows yet. But it's a step in the right direction with getting just somebody back from injury, and I think it's really really key. So I don't know, like. I'll start with you, Chris, since you're a Suns guy. What are your thoughts with Cam Johnson coming tonight, or returning tonight, and how it might look for the Suns moving forward?
I think it's a beautiful sighting. Honestly, I think it would have been a good sighting if they were healthy, but it's a beautiful sighting since they're depleted so bad right now. Um, and you really didn't get to see Cameron Johnson, the Cameron Johnson of this year yet. He started to almost seem like he was taking another step literally right before his injury. He's only played 8 games. And I mean, right into that last little mark of those eight
It's
games, he
crazy.
looked like he was making that next step. I wouldn't say as the next go-to guy, but maybe a legitimate, what we want him to be. So yeah, having him back is huge. The more the merrier at this point. I'm excited because I actually was excited for him coming into this season and seeing what he'll be able to do. And since you still don't have a Devin Booker, you don't have a Chris Paul, having him be able to have a little bit more of that offensive load, and see what he can do. Obviously, you can't put too much on him tonight. He's on minute restriction. He'll probably be on that for a little while, but just seeing what he'll be able to do going forward, yeah, it's a huge boost.
Yeah, huge boost indeed. Yeah, and I was just looking at the numbers. Cam Johnson, before he got hurt in those 8 games, he shot 43% from three. That would be second on the team to Damian Lee, who leads the league in 3-point shooting. So that'd be
Exactly.
huge boost to. I mean, if anything, that helps guys like Mikal Bridges out. That helps guys like DeAndre Ayton out. He may not be like the secondary go-to guy on the team, but he is someone that spaces the floor, that makes you play out. It helps get those one-on-one opportunities for DeAndre Ayton in the paint, so where you're not double teaming him as much. I think it's a huge factor for him, and obviously because they didn't extend him this past offseason, so we need to know exactly what the Suns have with him moving in the future. So this is terrific. Rowan, what are your thoughts on Cam Johnson's return tonight? I know it's huge for City of Phoenix.
Yeah, I think it's a huge step in the right direction. You're looking at a team that went from first to 12th in the 2 months he's been gone. Um, like you said, they're missing 5 other players tonight, but I think this is a sign of good things to come for this franchise. It's hard to believe where they were at the last 2 seasons, that this is where I don't want to say this little run is going to end, but it would be sad to see this little run end and this team get broken up after this season without another fully healthy go at the playoffs. With all that being said, there's still 3 to 4 months before playoffs. So, like I said, I think this is a good step in the right direction to getting back healthy for the playoffs. And they are a dangerous team. They have dangerous players. They fully healthy. They can defend. They got length. I think if they can get to the playoffs healthy, even if they limp in as a 6, 7, 8 seed, they might could do some damage, man. Upset first round, and from there, who knows? Sky's the limit. You got Devin Booker, who's obviously a killer on offense. Give him the ball in the clutch. I think tonight's it's a great sight to see a young player back. Injuries have derailed a lot of players' careers over the history of this game, and to see him coming back after 2.5 months is beautiful. Um, I wish the best to him, wish health to him. I remember watching this kid play at North Carolina, so I'm excited about it for sure.
Yeah, I was one of those guys that was very excited when he got drafted by Phoenix. So it's really amazing to have him back. And in times like this, especially right before the All-Star break, they really need it desperately.
Yeah.
Real quick, Jacob, how are you feeling tonight about like Cameron Johnson's return? I know
I like it. I like that he came back before Booker and before a fully healthy Aiden and fully healthy Paul. I think, you're working on a puzzle. You do those border pieces first and you start working in. The Suns have got to get, their 4-3 guys first before they get their 1-2 guys healthy and really get this team back on where they were. They can get Cam Johnson back inside the rotation, kind of, if you can be putting up consistent 20 points a night, start showing promise. Suns get maybe, they're winning 2 every 4 instead of 1 every 4. All right, we're taking a step in the right direction. That's all they got to do right now. They just got to get back inside the win column at a somewhat consistent pace, because right now it is horrible. And I mean, I think it's a good start, like Rowan said, but still a while to go. But I like where, I would say it's only up from here. I think they've hit rock bottom. I hope I'm not wrong on that.
Definitely hit rock bottom.
Nope, they've hit rock bottom.
It's rock bottom.
Continue like this all year. Championship window closes and the team falls into pieces. But
just real quick, I want to throw out there. I think he could be a second option.
I think he can too.
Talk to him, Rowan.
He was a first option in college. I think he can definitely be a second option at this level, man. Him and Booker going back and forth each win.
I think it's just
Chris Paul's name. And we've talked about this before. Do you bench Chris Paul? And it's just can't.
And even if you don't bench him, I think it's just like something has to be established at some point. Like some communication has to be had. The obvious needs to be put in the air. Like, hey, you're this, he's this now. You were this, now you're this.
Exactly.
And, that just needs to be like made clear. And from there, you have that much better of an understanding to me. Not trying to go off on a tangent, but last season The Celtics, right before they got good, Marcus Smart made some comments in the post game saying, I don't. I'm a point guard, but they make me go stand in the corner. I can't pass it. I can't do my job basically standing on the side. And then they had a team meeting. It got hashed. Everything took off after that. And I'm not saying that's the exact same thing, but it's you have to put the obvious in the air at some point. I think you just do.
Yeah, the game has passed Chris Paul up, man. I hate to say it, one of the legends, Hall of Famer for sure. But just that slow pace, milk every possession, try to get the best shot is not how the NBA is played. If you're only putting up 40 shots in a quarter and the people you're playing against putting up 60, it really don't matter how high percentage you shooting if they out shooting you at such a cliff that the teams are doing to the Suns this season. Plus and minuses has been ridiculous.
Ridiculous.
Yeah, no,
Ridiculous.
shoot. To add on to that, I get you because I mean, when Chris Paul was out, during that time when Cameron Payne was in, I'm not saying Cameron Payne's better than Chris Paul.
No,
They went on that win streak for a reason. Now, obviously, a lot of that has to do with Devin Booker, who, in my opinion, still gets so much disrespect.
he
He is
does.
showing how much valuable he is in the NBA right now. I'm sick and tired of him getting disrespected. But
Let
that's
them
a
know,
conversation
Frank.
for another day. But if anything, man, what that showed is just that high up tempo pace is
Simple.
so key in this Monty
Yeah.
Williams offense. And I just feel like with Chris out there, I just think that the pace of the game, like it kind of disrupts the flow at times and it kind of makes the offense at times stagnant. Now, and all that's not on Chris Paul, and I believe he's still a terrific player that makes great offensive plays and the right offensive plays. I just think with a guy like DeAndre Ayton, with a guy like Devin Booker, with a guy like Cam Johnson, you got to play fast and more up
Yeah,
tempo at times. So I understand that. And with that, I wanted to add on more to like even the trade rumors that are going around because I know the Suns are rumors or reports actually have said that the Suns are one of two teams that are interested in going after Fred VanVleet this offseason during the summer. And the first question I had when I thought of that was, okay, what does that mean for Chris Paul? Because he's still on the books for another 2 years.
That's a good point.
And he's due at least $15 million of his $30 million this upcoming offseason. So are they thinking about moving on from Chris Paul? Or are they thinking about moving him to the bench like you guys were alluding to and adding Fred VanVleet? Shoot, I
I
mean,
think honestly, if you move Chris Paul, be it in a trade somehow, 3-team trade for Van Vliet, in this day and age, and that's the thing, it's so easy to get misconstrued. It would be a better move if you're talking about pace and talent. Cameron Payne has the pace. Chris Paul has the talent. Fred
mm-mm.
Van Vliet kind of gives you both. Not necessarily the same level of Chris Paul, but he does give you both of those. And I could see that happening. I could really see that happening. He's on the last leg of his deal. Didn't want to re-up with Toronto. Maybe something happens there. So yeah, I didn't even think about that when I was doing something on the Fred VanVleet. I didn't even think about Chris Paul with that, but yeah, that's a good point.
yeah.
Yeah,
Chris Paul's
man.
my bad, Frank. You go ahead.
Oh no. Yeah, I was just gonna add on to that because it's really an interesting question to ask, and it's no coincidence with everything going on in Toronto with Fred VanVleet and obviously him talking on the JJ Redick podcast about how the season's going, what he's planning on doing in free agency, like and everything, and then you have rumors and reports going around saying that look out for the Toronto Raptors come the trade deadline. They might, clean house and go to the
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden you hear the Raptors are interested in DeAndre Ayton.
Oh
I'm
yeah.
just saying. I'm just saying. It's out there.
The
But
jig
I mean
is
that's
up.
it's a question to be had of like, yeah, what the Suns can get in return for that. But I didn't mean to cut you off, Rowan. Did you have anything else that you want to add with the
Yeah,
Fred VanVleet?
it didn't really have much to do with the trade. It's more of just Chris Paul and
Mm,
the thing about the speed and the tempo of the game. When you got veteran players like Chris Paul is used to, you can slow it down, and they'll still be able to find their groove. But when you got so many young guys like Aiden and Johnson, I mean Booker's really the only player that's been in the league more than 4 or 5 years on the Suns starting lineup besides Chris Paul.
Right.
uh, when younger players think too much, they start messing up. When they just running and all of a sudden, oh, the ball's here. Oh, they could hoop, and everybody knows how to hoop at this level. But when they sitting
Muscle
in the
memory.
corner thinking of everything, okay, if he could, okay, what if I, okay, you start overthinking it, and you get the ball hesitant in just a second. I'm not saying people play bad, but just that style of Chris Paul's play, I don't think is fit for the teammates around him, slowing it down and running pick and rolls all day. Aiden, he'd rather just have the ball on the break and without even thinking, be able to lay it up instead of all that overthinking stuff. I think that's the only thing about the tempo and stuff. As far as moving on from Chris Paul, I think it'll behoove the Phoenix Suns to do that as soon as possible. The sooner they can just free that spot up and just let these young guys run and hoop and get some um, what's the word when you playing together? You get used to playing with each other. I can't think of it off the top of my head.
Chemistry.
Yeah, get some chemistry because that's really you got two different style of point guards on and off the bench. It's just two different game
Yeah.
plans, two different styles. That's all I was gonna bring it up before you even talked about the trade. Just slowing it down for younger players makes them overthink a little too much, in my opinion, from playing the sport. But yeah,
Yeah, and to Chris Paul's defense, I mean,
go,
a lot of it could a lot of
go.
it kind of a lot of it kind of comes down to continuity. I feel like I know they've played together for a couple years, so like they know each other really well. But there's also that flow of action in a real life game, and I feel like a lot of these guys haven't really played together all season as a whole. Now that's obviously you can think of that as an excuse, and I wouldn't blame you if you did. But I also do agree that there is a level of situation of okay, factor in age, factor in okay, we need to get a little bit more up tempo in this offense
He's a
to help the other
liability on
players out.
defense too.
Yeah, absolutely. So I understand that from that perspective. And for
He's
like yeah. So, but like for the last portion, of this, I would like to like see how you guys are kind of viewing the trade rumors going around with Phoenix, especially like I said earlier with like the Raptors being interested in DeAndre Ayton, the Suns still needing to move on from Jay Crowder, which I believe they will, even though we say this every week. But with the trade rumors coming around February 9th, I'll start with you, Jacob. Actually, who would you like for the Suns? Let's spice up. Who would you like for the Suns to hopefully get in regards to Jay Crowder come before the All-Star break?
Anyone. I don't care.
Thank you.
Anybody.
Thank
They
you.
need if they don't get rid of Jay Crowder and get anybody, fans are going to be so mad.
Oh yeah.
Like furious and rightfully so. I mean, this is ridiculous. There's been no moves that have been made, and everyone's just sitting there waiting and waiting and waiting. And it's like you guys are, you broke your own record last year for winning the most games, and all of a sudden you're in 12th place and you're not doing anything about it. You're sitting here crying about injuries, then go get someone. And I think if they could get rid of Ayton too, then do it, because not from Ayton's a horrible player. I think there's other teams that are looking at him and they think, okay, he looks like we could coach him into being a star. And obviously, maybe it has something to do with his relationships with Monty. I know there's always been something there. He just doesn't want to listen to him. It's something like that where they just don't have a good relationship, and he just refuses to do what some coach says. And another team might look at that and go, "Listen, this guy has the talent. He was that first overall, right? Second. Yeah.
no, he was first.
Yeah,
First mistake of the draft.
But I think another team looks at that and they go, listen, he was him. Like, we can deal with this and we can coach him into something being good.
Yeah.
But instead, he's not listening to anybody on the Sun. So I think if they could get someone good out of Ayton, then do it. At this point, I think any trade's better than no trade.
Dang, I don't think we can go a podcast without mentioning DeAndre Ayton, man.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
actually starting to feel bad. But like at
Your
the
center's putting
same
up
time,
5 points in this league. I mean, center's the most. I get it. It's a 3 shooting league. But if you look at all the teams that are competitive, they have that center who's just bodying up guys in the paint and are putting up 30 points from the free throw line. And I mean, Aiden's getting to the line once or twice a night, and it's like
He's getting to the line literally. I want to say I actually had it in my notes. I want to say it's like literally 2.1 free throws
That's
attempts.
ridiculous.
He should at least be
And
shooting
that
6 to 8.
actually, to make it worse, that has been in the time span since both Chris Paul and Devin Booker have been absent. So you're not getting more free throws. He's averaging, I want to say, 17.3 points, 9.7 rebounds, and 2.1 assists per game.
Man, let me throw this trade
Yeah.
idea out there real quick. The Chicago Bulls talking about blowing stuff up because it ain't working for them, just like it ain't working in Phoenix. Nikola Vujacic, the center for the Chicago Bulls, is averaging 18, 11
Oh,
with
Vucevic.
with 4
Yeah,
assists.
Vucevic is,
Nice.
yeah.
Check this out, bro. Crowder, Aiton, give them a draft pick or two if you want. Let's get Levine and Nikola Vujovic. Get both of them down here and let's go win some games, man. I mess up everybody's name. This is the worst thing I've ever done in
Yeah,
my
no,
life is try to
these
pronounce
their
names.
names
No,
are getting
Vucevic is actually more productive than Aiton. He
He
just
was
does
nice
not
with the
have the
Magic.
any
flashy.
centers being more productive than
Yeah,
Aiden.
I
I
mean,
mean, you
he
can
just
look up.
doesn't have the. It
There's
doesn't
centers I've
say.
never heard of.
Yeah,
And I'm
yeah,
like, what's like? He's putting up better
and
numbers
we
than
play
Aiden, and
them
nobody's talking about this.
sometimes. Yeah,
And
we
it's
play them sometimes. You got your Steve Adams, you got your Valachunases
Oh,
that are crashing the boards and doing the big
that's
man
all I
work,
want him to do, man.
yeah,
I
and
just
I
want him to crash
get
the
Just play
board.
big.
I just want him to crash the boards. If you stay at 17.3 points, but you're crashing the boards more than 9.7 rebounds, there's forwards out here that are averaging 9.7. And I know I saw something the other day where it was like, oh, he's not the Joel Embiid archetype. He's not the Giannis archetype. So you can't
We don't
expect him
need that.
to. But there's
that's
little
yeah.
things you can do better. I mean, for goodness sake, Embiid averages 11.8 free throws per game.
Hmm.
11.8. I don't care what size, archetype, wingspan, body build, 2 point something to 11.8 is a heck of a margin. Like you're not even attempting half the free throws.
He getting
That
fouled once a game, bro. I mean, one
Yeah.
offensive board, pump fake and put up and get you that.
And now I will throw this in there. A lot of people that come to Aiden's defense are saying that maybe it's not a him thing and it's a Monty thing because of how
Mm.
Monty plays him. I'm not really ready to press that button 1,000,000% yet, but I mean, I could see it being a thing maybe where like Jacob was saying, he goes to another team, he takes off.
I could see him
I
doing it.
mean,
Now
you
I
know,
say this, and we probably gonna get canceled for me saying this, bro.
Oh no. Oh no.
Soft. That's all I'm gonna say.
No,
Overall
100%.
soft. All we want him to do is play like a 6'10" center that he is, first round overall pick getting paid. He playing soft. People that come to his fence is soft. I don't care what your coach is saying or how you feel about your coach. Your job is to go out there and ball out. Go out there, ball out, cuss Monty Williams out, and go home if you want to, bro. Nobody would care if you putting up some production. He just soft,
no,
man.
it's like you're going crazy backing down somebody of Brandon Ingram's body build, and people make a big spectacle. Oh, he got 11 rebounds on, and his defender was somebody of that type of nature, or basically a bench forward or bench center. But when it comes to, like I said, the Valanciunases of the world and those, he's literally getting pretty much dog walked every night. I mean, Adebayo,
Don't win like
wherever you want to go with it, he's just
Oh,
not
I would
there.
love Bam Adebayo on
Oh,
this
for sure.
team. Oh my
But
goodness.
I think the verdict is out, and if it's different come the end of the season, I'm telling you, y'all can come in here. We can make the title Burn City roasts Chris for DeAndre Ayton take. But I think the verdict's out on him now. It's just this is who
It
he
is.
is. Some nights he'll give you 20 points, 15, 16 rebounds, and then other nights against a team he should get the rebounds or the points on, he's going to give you 8 points, 7 rebounds.
I watched him very closely in college. This has been him since he's been
Yeah.
on the scene at any level of basketball. He is not aggressive. This is who
And
he
my
is.
only other thing with that, and this is the last thing I have on it, is I think he blew it. And the only reason I say that is because You got your contract extension. And it kind of goes back to Kyler Murray. Like you said, people get their contract and they relax when really you should be trying to prove that you were worth the drama. You had this prime window where you were the focal point of that offense. No Booker, no Chris Paul, no none of that. And you didn't really do anything to wow people. I get you get double teamed in certain sets, happen to pass out, but I mean, still, it's such a big sample size of where you didn't do what even I necessarily thought he was going to do. Because I was like, maybe he's going to like go on this tear. And then when everybody comes back, he kind of goes back into who he is. And then we can all still say, hey, we seen what he can do, without any, but that didn't happen. So I think it's just who he is at this point.
I
Hey
know it's
man,
who he is.
hey man, I'm just gonna leave this out here too. It's just, I'm just, it's frustrating because we know how talented he is,
Yeah.
but then at the same time, that the rebounding actually, as crazy as it sounds, that's not what frustrates me. What frustrates me is that he can't hold on to the ball at times in the paint. Like he turns the ball over too, and it's just like, or he just can't hold on to it at times. And it's just like like you guys said. I mean, that's just like I feel like teams just have verdict on him right now, man, and it's a problem. But yeah, we can go on like we say every week. We can go on and on and on about DeAndre Ayton. Hopefully, if they can get healthy, that changes things. But I don't know. We'll see. We still. I believe the Suns team will get healthy, in about a month or so, a little before the All-Star break, and then we can see from there. But that'll do it for this episode of Feel the Burn podcast. I'm your host Franklin Miller. We'll go along with Jacob Harden, Rowan Donaghy, and Chris Denson. Tune in for next week's episode on YouTube, and we'll see you then. Have a good night, everybody.
Eddie Murphy
Yeah,
said SOF